We're gonna get started on our dessert sushi, and this is going to kind of look like the nigiri rolls, which are the rolls that have rice on the bottom and usually like some kind of very thinly sliced meat or fish on top. But we're going to make this vegan and a dessert, so we're gonna use fresh fruit, papaya and mango. So to get started, we're gonna still use a sticky rice, and sticky rice is kind of interesting, and it's not the same as just a typical white rice, brown rice, or jasmine rice. So make sure when you go to the store you look for sticky rice or sushi rice. It's also called glutinous rice, which is a little deceiving because it is gluten-free, but that just refers to the fact that it's very sticky. So when you get the rice dry, go ahead and put it in some water, and you're gonna wanna swish it around in the water, and when you do that, swish it around in the water, and you'll notice the water gets very cloudy. So you're gonna wanna strain it out, put it back in water, strain it out, and do that at maybe 3 or 4 times until the water stays clear. And once you have clear water, the rice is gonna have to soak for a couple of hours. I would say at least 4 or 5. But you can do it overnight. Just don't let it soak for like an entire day, because then it's not gonna work anymore. So let me strain this out. All right, and after you have strained it and let it soak for several hours, it's gonna look like this. So we still have to cook it, it's not done. And we're gonna cook this rice, typically with a sushi, you cook rice in like a sweetened vinegar and some water, but since we're making a dessert rice, a coconut rice, we're gonna cook it in coconut milk. So put the rice in a saucepan, and you can use a rice cooker for this, but I just wanna make the show friendly to everybody, even those of you without rice cookers. So put it in a saucepan, and we're gonna add to that 1 cup of rice with 1 cup of full fat coconut milk. You can use a lower fat kind if you want, but the fat in the coconut milk helps give it like a really good flavor, so just use the full fat kind. I'm gonna use 1 tablespoon of sugar and 1/2 tablespoon of a really good vanilla extract. And that's it. So mix everything together, and we're gonna get this on a stove, and you wanna make sure you leave it covered and that you don't touch it and don't mess with it for about 15 minutes. If you take that cover off, you're gonna let all the steam out. And what we're trying to do is steam the rice more so than just cook it. And just be careful too that you're not burning it. So check it after 15 minutes. All right, so low heat on the stove. So our coconut rice is cooking on the stove, and while that's happening, we're gonna get the fruit cut. So we're gonna use mango and papaya, and I picked these just because 1, they're really tasty, 2, they go well with coconut, and 3, they kind of we're gonna make it look like that typical nigiri roll when you think of like a salmon roll. We're gonna cut these to try and resemble like really thin little slices to lay over the top of the rice. So I suppose there are a number of ways you can do this. But what I'm doing first is just trying to peel the outside off of the mango. And then once you have some of that flesh exposed in the middle, just kind of like thinly cut a slice off about that big. And you can see here I have a plate of them. So, you know, you can make as many as you want, and you'll have kind of the right shape. You don't want them to be too small, you don't want them to be really long, because then you can just cut them in half, but you can also just slice this and cut it with a knife to the shape that you want. And we're gonna do a similar thing with the papaya. So move this aside. And just kind of like flaking pieces off of the inside of the papaya. All right, so already it looks really pretty, and there are a lot of colors there. And this next part is optional, but it's just kind of a fun thing to do and looks a little nicer as a garnish. But I have some basil, which does go very well with these flavors, and then I have some mint. And I'm gonna pull some of those big leaves off. And if you want, you can cut them thin and kind of make like a little wrap around the pieces of sushi, which you've probably seen before. Usually it's done with seaweed. Not necessary, but it does taste pretty good and looks a little nicer. So, like this piece of basil here is kind of rolled up already into a long skinny piece, so we can go ahead and use that just as it is. You can also just roll them up or cut them if you want. When you cut herbs though, know that sometimes they get brown fast, so you may or may not want to do that. And if it doesn't wrap around the entire piece of sushi, that's okay. We can kind of fold it and then like pinch it into the sides, because the rice is sticky rice after all, so it'll just kind of hold it in place. All right, we'll set some of those aside and get our rice off the stove because we want to let it cool down so we can handle it and form it into the shapes that we want. Okay, so our rice has been off the stove for a little while now, so it's a little more cool to the touch, and you can set it aside and kind of fluff it up with a fork a little bit, but remember, it's sticky rice, so it's intentionally going to stick together, and that's a good thing. So once you've just puffed it up a little bit, and make sure your hands are clean because we're going to use our hands, and grab a little bit here. All right, and you're going to just kind of roll it in your hands and make it kind of like a long, kind of like a ball, but a little bit longer. So we're going for like a shape like that. And grab a piece of fruit. We're going to lay across the top. Let's find a good one. So something like that. And you can see that it's already kind of resembling sushi. And then, if you do want to wrap it in basil, you can do something like that. And it's adorable. And it's delicious fruit coconut dessert sushi. I love this stuff, guys. I think it may be the cutest thing I've ever made. So I'm just going to add that to a plate. And you can make more of these. You know, frankly, if you're lazy, you can just serve the rice with the fruit on top. And you can even eat it warm still. That's oftentimes how it's served. Coconut rice with mango is served warm in restaurants. All right, let's get a papaya one now. All right. And we can just stick some little mint pieces on it like that. It's really adorable. So I'm gonna make a bunch of these, and I think our guest is on the way in. So we will see you guys in just a minute.